And I was like, brother, you got it all wrong, man. Like, you don't get better so that you can come to God. Like, God finds you and he changes your desires. He makes things different for you. You don't give up and abstain so that you can gain salvation. Salvation comes no matter what you do, but it doesn't come without having an effect on you, and that effect is redemptive.
Welcome everyone to Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. We're very excited to have with us Matt Posey. Um, Matt, tell us about yourself and who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, not a whole lot to tell actually. I'm a father of two kids, married, large dog, small cat. I'm here in Ogden, Utah, so in the northern part of Utah, northern part of the state, which I love. Originally from Texas, I still call Texas home. Got a lot of family out there, but moved up here about 7 years ago, and not sure I ever want to leave.
Where in Texas were you from? I didn't get that last part.
San Antonio area.
Okay. We visited there once when my son graduated from Naval Academy or something there.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big military city.
Yeah, it was huge. It was very cool and full of lots of historical places, which I really love.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
So where in Ogden, and just because for me, for reference, because my dad grew up there. So what area of Ogden are you in?
So it's technically South Ogden,
Okay.
which is a different municipality. I guess there's not Ogden. There's North Ogden, Ogden, South Ogden.
There's all the Ogdens. Yeah.
Yeah, various Ogdens here and there. So if I'm not too far off of Highway 89.
Okay.
You know, is my neighborhood.
Just for my references and stuff there. My dad grew up in Pleasant View, so
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I've got friends out there.
spent a lot of time up there,
Mm.
right off the main drag. So very cool. Well, awesome. Well, welcome to Utah. I'm glad you don't want to leave. My husband was never going to live in Utah, and then now he doesn't want to leave either. So
It's nice. It's a good climate.
once you get here, it kind of grows on you a little bit.
Sure did for us. Yeah, all of
Very
us.
well, awesome. So I don't know how you want to do it. Usually the podcast, this format itself is a little bit different. I can do it the way we did it in our interview, where you talk about your work first, or we can talk about like what messages you want to do, or we define it however you'd like to do. But usually I
Um,
start with like, what's your message? What's your rant? What's your thing you want people to know about?
well, for my rant, let's see. It's all about redemption in a word. I think that there's a lot of room for redemption. I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about what redemption means. It can mean different things to different people. I really just, no matter what we've done, where we are, where we've been, what we've been told about God or, whatever, God is both able and willing to redeem us. And it's not something that we earn. And that is such a difficult concept for us to grasp. Whether we've been raised in a religious home, whether we, feel like we have a good understanding of God, or whether we're just somebody, who hasn't had that background, I feel like we're all just getting it wrong so much. And so that's my big thing. Whenever we feel broken, used up, or just over, like things are over, there's always something more for us. And that just became very, very evident in my life a few years ago. And so this is just kind of, if you want to call it my rant or my soapbox, that's it. People need to know that there isn't just some there's no negotiation of get your life together first with God. It is here is redemption. Here's a free gift. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done, what you've been through. I've got a plan for you, and it's always going to be something good. So that is
I love that. And I think about that and I'm thinking about my own life. And I'm like, it's so funny because I'm always telling everyone, oh, you got God's grace, it's there for you. It's always possible. But then when I look at myself, I always put limitations on God when it came to me. And recently, same kind of things that I've been thinking about and how I've been doing that. But I'm interested, if it's too personal, it's fine. But what got you thinking differently about this idea of redemption? What was it that maybe made that corner or that change of thinking for you?
Well, Tanya, honestly, it's a day by day thing. Like I'm still trying to figure it out. What you just said really resonates with me because there was a night last week I was talking to my young daughter about. She was like, "Well, I just don't feel like I'm good. I feel like I'm bad," and I'm like, "But you're missing the point, hon. You know, like this is what God wants for us. This is what it means to be free. This is what Jesus died for, and all this stuff." And the whole time I'm saying it, I'm telling myself, "Listen to yourself." Listen to yourself and accept what you're saying. If it's true for her, it's true for me. But for some reason, I just feel like there's a double standard. Yeah, there's grace for everybody else out there, but not for me. And, I think it's just probably a byproduct of us being the only ones who live in our own bodies and know our deepest thoughts. And so we see ourselves different than everybody else, and it's a hard, it's a hard corner to turn, but it's something that I've written 4 books on. Every one of my novels had this theme of redemption, and specifically God's redemption of people who really, if you read the stories, they don't deserve it. But it was there was a few years ago, right after COVID, where I kind of had I was in a job. It was extremely stressful. The workload was just over. I was just overloaded, and there was no getting away with it. There's no getting away from it. And I felt like if I took a second to breathe, I was going to bring the organization I worked for to its knees, which is a very horrible feeling, and nobody's that important, right? I wasn't important enough to make the organization succeed, but I was dangerous enough to make the organization fail if I didn't get things right. And I had such a hard time, and it ended up invading my dreams, impacting sleep, physical and mental health. And I just reached a breaking point to where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And so I had to step down from that position, which I really, really loved. I was leading a team. I loved every one of them. I liked being their ambassador. I liked being the one who went after resources for them and enabled them. But I just felt like I wasn't able to do it. And if I made one wrong step, I was going to be the reason why we as an organization failed. And so I had to step away from that. And I put myself, I was able to find, I had good management support, and they put me in a new position. But it was nothing like my old one. It was lame, it was boring, and I just really hated it. And unfortunately, I had set up this job of mine as kind of an idol of sorts. It had become my identity. Well, who are you? What do you do? Well, I'm this guy. I have this position. And it wasn't to be a braggart or anything like that. It was just, I was very proud of what I did because I felt like it really, really mattered. And in this new position, I felt like it didn't matter at all. I could be gone the next day and they would just figure it out with minimal difficulty. And that was a hard thing to swallow. And to pull myself out of that, that was kind of difficult. And so I really felt used up. It was in some ways it was a career ender, which is okay. It was a decision I made, and it was a decision that needed to be made. But unfortunately, I'd gone from this guy who was just trying to move forward, forward, forward in this career to all of a sudden being the guy who said, "I've come this far and I can't do this. I need to pull back some for the sake of my family, for the sake of my own health." And so at that point, I really felt like a failure. And so it was right about that time that I got the inspiration to write A Haunt for Owls.
Wow, what a journey to go. It sounds very familiar as a teacher. I've been struggling so much with burnout several years. It's like I get feeling good about it and then not. And then I'll be like, I just want to quit and days after days. And then it's like trying to find that value and that motivation to keep going and doing. And then some days it's like, I just want to, yeah, do this well. And but I guess that's one reason why I maybe started doing this and stuff is to help me find that connection again and a way to relate to people and things. So, but yeah, feeling that worthiness, I resonated really much, really with that idea of like feeling like you're gonna hurt someone or like bring the failure down. It's like every day when I'm teaching, I'm like I'm ruining someone's life, right? Like these kids are going to succeed, and that they put that weight on you too sometimes in your jobs. Like if you don't do this, when really is it really all on me? And I feel that sometimes, that weight, and I understand it's that can be a lot, and to feel that worthiness after it when you're stuff like that is that can be hard. Well, you mentioned going into your book and writing your book. Well, let's get right into that then. What helped you, inspired you to write, and this, especially this
Yeah.
first novel?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. It's a story I love to share. I tell everybody I can with great pride that A Haunt for Owls was an accidental novel. And when you undertake something like that's usually not by accident. It's like saying, "Well, I'm going to build this skyscraper by accident. Let's just start building with some bricks here." But it really, in a sense, was an accidental novel. Like I said, I had moved to this job, and I felt like I was just very underutilized. And in this organization that I work for, there's a lot of bureaucracy, right? And so I work this job, and it's pretty inflexible when it comes to creative, outside the box thinking. Things need to be done a certain way, and there's just not a whole lot of room for creative problem solving. That's just the nature of the work that we do. So I come home and I create. I've been doing this for 20 years. I work carpentry projects. I make short videos. I speak to audiences whenever I have the opportunity. And a few years ago, I fell into this writing by accident. And so what happened is it started with a spark of inspiration. A friend of mine called me. He and I had done some small training videos together, in my previous job. And he called me and he had this great idea for this short film, and he was just on fire about it. It was gonna be great. He was gonna make it like a YouTube mini series or something, and he was just, it was one of those things you just got to admire just the enthusiasm for it, right? And so he wanted to know if I would write a screenplay for him. Well, I don't know the first thing about writing screenplays. I had done a little bit of creative writing maybe in my late teens and 20s and stuff as part of classes and stuff, and I enjoyed it. But then I started working, and all I wrote was emails, and I didn't feel like writing all of a sudden. It's like a mechanic. Car mechanic goes works on cars all day. He comes home, he's not going to work on his car, right? So anyway, this film wasn't something that was going to happen without significant financial resources, but the idea intrigued me, right? And so for whatever reason, I mean, really, based on what we discussed, it was just a timing thing. I asked him, "Hey, why don't you just let me turn it into a short story, and you can use it if you want, if you ever get around to it, to pitch to investors and just see if you can get a low budget film done. It'd be a lot of fun." And so he agreed, and four pages turned into 10, turned into 20, and then 50. And I found myself pouring all my flaws and shortcomings and disappointments into the characters of this story that I was writing. And it was just meant to be. All of a sudden I was interested in, the story takes place in 1873. Where were state line boundaries in 1873? What was going on? What were the cultural norms? What was the legal system like? How much did things cost? Had barbed wire been invented yet? It hadn't, by the way. It was commercially available a few years after that. These
Mhm.
are all things that I actually, for some weird reason, enjoyed researching. So I was on fire for this story. And so by the time I was done, I had this really tragic, probably a novelette basically on my hands. And these characters had now become representations of myself at that time. And at the end of the story, Tanya, none of these characters were doing very well. And I was pretty bummed out, right? But I had good people in my life. My wife, a good friend who's a good bit older than I am, who's kind of a mentor to me. And I also had a counselor. And all of these people separately encouraged me to continue this story, to redeem it, if you will, and to bring it to a good conclusion. And so that, whatever reason, timing, it sounded good to me. And so that goal became my homework, and writing became a therapy of sorts. And I worked at it pretty faithfully until a few months later, lo and behold, I've got a short novel on my hands with a satisfying conclusion and a redemption story that I was just like, I had no idea that this is how this was going to turn out. It was really beautiful. But what to do with it, right? That's the next question. And so I got some encouragement from my wife and a few other people to actually put it out there, deliver it to the world. And I was a little bit standoffish. I was like, no, I think this thing needs to live and die on this hard drive here on my laptop. And, if somebody wants to read it, they can read it. But I had the opportunity through a friend of a friend to actually give it to a professional in the publishing industry. And he read it and he came back and he was so encouraging in what he said. He said, Matt, you need to publish this book. And I was like, great. Where's my publishing deal? How much do I get? And he laughed like you're laughing now. And he says, I'm sorry, did you just kill Osama bin Laden? Did you just land a plane in the Hudson River in New York and save 300 lives? Well, no. He's like, you don't have a platform, Matt. You're going to have to self-publish, but you can do it. And I think you need to do it. And so he gave me the ins and outs. Here's how you can do it for, $0 on an iPhone. Here's how you can make it the best it can possibly be. And so I wanted it to be good if it was going to be out there. I wanted it to be the best story it could be. And so I saved up and I also sent out a lot of support letters, which was scary for me to do. I'd never done anything like that before, Tanya. I sent out these support letters to family and some good friends, people that I had done life with over the past, I don't know, decade and a half, give or take. And I just said, hey, this is something I'm doing. If you want to give something, give. It's not an investment. Books don't make money. They cost money. It's just, if you want to see this, if you want to be part of this project, just think about it. No pressure. And I really expected to get maybe $500-$600 and then have to return it all because I couldn't really do much with that. But miraculously, 3 months later, I was fully funded and I was able to contract with Redemption Press to produce A Haunt for Owls. And so it was just, I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that I would even take the time and have the patience to write a book, much less get the opportunity to publish. And that's the story of the accidental novel, which actually hit the streets last November. And man, what a ride.
That's incredible. It's only been since November. That is, I say, timing, divine intervention, whatever it is. This story needs to be told, obviously, because everything just fell into place where it needed to be when it needed to for you. Because things like that just don't happen, right? There's no coincidences in my life ever that I've ever noticed, and it's always something is supposed to happen with it, right? So I love the idea of the accidental novel because so same with my story is like I was given a word and then I just started writing it. And then 20 years later, after I gave up on it for a while and then came back, it just all of a sudden it happens, right? When it's supposed to happen. And the right timing, I think, is always about what it is. But in that, well, who did you read? Who is it that you like read books of or that was inspirational to you as you were growing up or even still currently that helps you with your writing and your processing?
Yeah. I was a voracious reader as a kid. We didn't have as much TV access in my home as most of my peers did, and so we made up for it with books. And so I read a lot more than the average kid probably. And, I read stories about cowboys, stories about, faithful dogs, where the red fern grows, things like that. A lot of the classics. I read some Hank the Cowdog. I read Beverly Cleary, Judy Blume as a young kid, and Hardy Boys as I got a little bit older. And then by the time I was approaching my teen years, I read some Frank Peretti, which he was a pretty big Christian author in probably the early 90s. He wrote a couple books. The first one, I think, in this series was called This Present Darkness. And it was kind of angels versus demons. And basically it had all these peoples whose lives were it was just life on the surface. But then it dove beneath and it showed the reader everything that those people didn't see. And it was the spiritual warfare and stuff. And so people were pretty, hyped up about it. And I remember reading it and just thinking it was absolutely fascinating that there could be so many battles being won and lost that when everything to me just seems kind of random and happenstance, right?
Mhm.
Until, of course, you have an experience like everything falling into place with this story, right? That's just kind of undeniable. There's too many moving parts for that to be some weird coincidence. So more recently, I took a hiatus of probably about 15 years from reading for pleasure, unfortunately. college, graduate school,
Yep.
work, leadership books, self-help, business success books, all of which basically tell you the same 3 or 5 things, and they just kind of regurgitate,
Right.
ad nauseum. But that was what I read, because I was like, I got to better myself. And so, finally, I started kind of reading some fiction again. And one book that really stood out is a book by William Paul Young, and it's called The Shack. You may have heard of it. They made a movie
Movie. Yeah.
about it. Yeah. And it's such a cool story because it's a man who suffers this unimaginable loss. And he, in the story, actually gets an opportunity to kind of plead his case with God. And I just love how it flies in the face of some of the common perceptions about who God is. And it too is a redemption story.
Hmm.
And so I think that definitely it has had some influence on my writing. And then there's another book that I read. It's not a fictional novel. It's more of a memoir, and it's by a guy named Brennan Manning, and it's called The Ragamuffin Gospel. And Manning was this Catholic priest who, through his own addiction and recovery journey, found kind of a new understanding of grace and how God takes us as we are, but doesn't just leave us that way. And so that was something that was really kind of very special to me, especially during this time when I felt a little used up and kind of just spat out because of my experience with this job that I had to move away from. And so those are some of the books more recently that have influenced my writing.
Wow. That one sounds interesting. I really love that concept that it's not even just about redemption. Sometimes it's about being okay with where we are and letting God take us, but not staying there. Because sometimes we're just like, oh, God loves us the way that we are, but he doesn't want to leave us there. And the idea of redemption is also that he brings us up to not just redeeming us where we're stuck at. It's that improvement and that growth too. Because I hope I'm not staying where I'm at.
Yeah,
But
well, absolutely. I mean, redemption by definition means, you're being elevated from where you are. And it's a very hard needle to thread, isn't it though? Because we have on the one hand this I need to get my stuff together so that I can become presentable to God. Whether we even vocalize that or not, our minds kind of go there sometimes.
like,
I've talked to friends. I remember this one friend. He said many years ago, he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to like go to church and get into like I think God is awesome and all that stuff, but I just want to stop sleeping with my girlfriend." And I was like, "Brother, you got it all wrong, man. Like you don't get better so that you can come to God. Like God finds you and he changes your desires. He makes things different for you. You don't give up and abstain so that you can gain salvation. Salvation comes no matter what you do, but it doesn't come without having an effect on you, and that effect is redemptive. And so I
absolutely.
always remember that conversation because he was just so very candid about what other people would really kind of be afraid to say, and I really loved him for it.
Sometimes just being the simple truth and the simple, honest statements are the most powerful, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not overthinking it. You're not trying to hide what or try to manipulate it to what other people want to hear or think or say. And sometimes I just want it, just here it is. Oh, wow. I've got some things to think about here. That's awesome. Like all the things I'm thinking about. And we see that in the world today too, though, right? Because I mean, everything in the world is about you have to be this perfect view of social media is like showing only the best parts of yourself and not all these other things. And then if you've made a mistake, somehow that's your mistake and you're judged by it for the rest of your life. And this world is very needing of this idea of redemption and forgiveness and the idea of becoming better and not just being stuck. I'm thinking about all the things I've been watching lately and seeing in the news and the world and politics and stuff. And we need redemption so badly. And this idea that you've talked about today. And wow, yeah, so much. Well, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share with us or leave us with as we're
Well,
going?
I would like to share that I've been suffering a writer's block for about 9 or 10 months, but I don't know if it's real writer's block or if I've just been so focused on the publication of my next novel.
Mhm.
It's called The Burn, and it's going to be coming out hopefully. I received the second round of proofs today, so I think I'm in the home stretch, and I'm hoping that it'll be published later this year, and hopefully not too much later. Hopefully before the Thanksgiving Christmas season. I'm hoping it'll be out. I'm really excited about it. It is an absolute redemption story. It's fun. It has nothing to do with Haunt for Owls. It's set in modern times,
Okay.
and it follows these two guys who basically are living these parallel lives. And you're like, is this the same guy? What is this? And so each of these guys, they have the opportunity granted to them to really improve their station in life. We're talking financially. But in both cases, it requires doing something that's illegal. And each one of these guys has to struggle with the decision. And it's sort of like, it's a little bit like if you've heard of the butterfly effect, the idea and the philosophical realm, or whatever you want to call it, of chaos theory, where like a
Right.
butterfly flaps its wings and it causes a hurricane at the end of the world. We just never know what the second, third, nth order effects are of our decisions.
Hmm.
And so we sort of get to see that because, these guys, they make their decisions and all of a sudden their lives, which were largely parallel, really start to deviate and go these different ways. And, I remember there have been times in my life where I'm like, if I did this, would it have an impact on the rest of my life? Would my whole life be different because of this inconsequential thing? Or is it inconsequential and it doesn't really matter? And the whole idea behind the book is God always brings us to where he wants us, regardless of what we do. Again, it's that concept of redemption, Tanya. We can flee from him, we can embrace him. He's still going to bring us to where he wants us. And so, it touches a little bit on like, well, is everything planned out for us, or do we even have free agency to make our own decisions? It
Hmm.
doesn't answer that, but it kind of explores that and causes the reader to kind of
Right.
think about that. And it's really cool because in the end of the story, after these guys' lives deviate so much, they all end up kind of coming back to the same place, and they are finding redemption. So it's a really cool story. I'm really, really excited about it. Um, it's the most recent book that I've written, but it's the second one that I wanted to publish because I was just too excited about it. So
That's
um,
incredible.
yeah, I look forward to that hitting the streets and getting some feedback on that. Until then, I'm just going to keep looking for those opportunities to grow as an inspirational speaker. I teach junior high kids,
What
and
school are you at?
kind of a kind of a youth group at our
Okay.
local church. But I've had the opportunity to talk to them about grace, redemption,
Mhm.
some various things, and then I've actually been able to talk to them about mental health, which was really fun and a little scary too, because you're talking about very real, life changing, in some cases life ending decisions. We're
Mhm.
talking about, hey, there's hope and there's help for you, and this is where you find it. This is how you bring in your parents and loved ones and kind of tell them what's going on with you. Yeah, I enjoy talking to all types of audiences on all sorts of subjects. I've done training, motivational speaking, sales pitches, just so I could learn how to get somebody to part with their money. I didn't want the job. I just did it because I was like, I have to learn how to be convincing. And
Right.
I even did some second rate comedy. It was so bad. It was so bad. Tanya. But I made myself do it because I wanted to put myself in that situation. So
Situation.
I just want to be the kind of guy who can engage any audience.
Yeah.
And
I
so
love that
looking
you're
forward.
taking risks like that because so many people are afraid to take risks. Even myself, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this and just do it. But it is so fulfilling when you're done because it's like you've challenged yourself and you've seen yourself in a different way. And it can be a really rewarding experience too.
Yeah.
Well, where can we find you? What are your social media, things like this? Where can people reach out to you at?
I tried to figure out what my Facebook handle was, but it's like profile slash a billion numbers.
Oh,
So why don't you just let me email you the link to that, and you can put that in there.
perfect.
You can find my author website is www.matthewposey.com. And then my YouTube page is just youtube.com/at guy running, GUYRUNNING. Um, I made it a long time ago. And so the guy running is just when I was in ninth grade, I made a little PowerPoint flash image of a guy running into a wall. So
So, hey, what better for a YouTube channel?
I know, right? So yeah, so many years ago, I was like, I don't know what to call this guy running, and I just had, there are videos on there. Some of them are there's a lot of carpentry videos. There's a lot of carpentry videos that bring in this aspect of this idea of redemption, what I call redemption carpentry. And so
Oh,
taking old boards, old use, just junk full of nails, stuff that you would normally throw in the dumpster, and actually making something beautiful out of them. And I say beautiful, I use that term loosely. I'm not a craftsman, but it looks a lot nicer than what these boards were originally used for. And so I've done a
right.
few of those. There's some time lapse videos of just building cabinetry and stuff, silly videos I make with my kids. And then there's a couple videos of me doing kind of some speaking and stuff. So that's what you can find there. That's mostly for fun. It really doesn't have anything to do with my authorship, but I'll be sure to get you links to all three of
Yes.
those.
Send me those and I'll put those in the description for everyone to
Well, that'd
find.
be so great. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Lastly, when are the Audible books coming out?
Oh my
Have you
goodness.
thought about doing audibles? Because with your voice, you should be recording these and we should be getting these out for people to hear as well. Because, yeah,
That's encouraging to hear. I don't, I want to do my own audiobooks. I'm terrified because I don't know how they're going to sound or, if I'll be able to, it's not reading, it's acting, it's voice acting. I don't know if I can do that, but I'm willing to give it a try. And I actually purchased a package through my publisher to do an audio book, kind of a DIY audio book of The Burn. So that'll be the
good.
first audio book that comes out. And that one will be out just as soon as I can. But it won't be until after the print copy and ebook is
Okay.
available. Haunt for Owls will definitely come next. That'll be my next big author project. We'll probably be finding a way to do an audiobook for a Haunt for Owls because, my goal, Tanya, is to get these messages of redemption they're first and foremost good, engaging, interesting stories. And then secondly, if you keep an open mind, maybe you'll challenge yourself a little bit and maybe it'll change your life. I don't know. But first and foremost, they're good stories. And I really want to make them as available as I can to the widest audience possible. And you know what that means nowadays? Audiobooks.
Absolutely.
So
As I have some students that could hear that I could see that need these books, but I know they won't read it. So I'm like, oh, we need to get an Audible book for it. But yeah.
if I'm being shamefully honest, that's how I read audiobooks.
My husband does. He listens to them everywhere he goes. And that's okay, because some people, that's what they need. And, meeting again, people where they are and sharing the story any way we can. It's important.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it. I've learned so much from you and I'm inspired. And when you get your next one out and you get ready for things, touch base again. Let's put this out and let's talk some more.
I would love to.
Again.
And Tanya, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this podcast interview with me. It's unbelievably hard to get interviews. And so this is really exciting for me. And I'm just so happy to be part of your project as you get it off the ground and you start building an audience.
That's what I'm hoping to do, is to give people those voices, because I too have found it, it's like getting in and getting interviews and stuff. So let's get our voices out there. Let's share this light that we've got within us. And
Let's do it.
All right.
Thanks so much for letting me join you.
Thank you so much. Hey, everyone, check out Matt Posey, and see us next time when I interview another author on Randy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. Have a great day, you guys. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews is sponsored by Mom and Pop's Naturals. All natural tallow-based products, locally sourced beef fat straight from the farm that our local raises. We have body butter, tallow, organic avocado oil, and young living oils. Lip balms of tallow, honey, young living essential oils as well. Our soaps are tallow, organic avocado, and coconut oils. A food grade lye which turns the fat into soap. And again, the young living essential oils. Here's a kicker. You can use soap as a shampoo too. And researching it to try and find a recipe, they were exactly the same. So I haven't used anything else for the last 6 months. From head to toe. Great stuff all around. We also make sunscreens, baby butt creams, bath salts, and balms, a beard balm even for the men, as well as salt scrubs. As a mother and grandmother, I wish I'd done this sooner. With children with eczema growing up and all the health problems we've had, we now use this on our grandchildren and ourselves exclusively. Even the dyes we use are completely natural and safe. There are so many chemicals and dyes in the product that are healthy for you. Tal's compatible with our bodies, has nutrients and vitamins vitamins, essential fatty acids that our bodies need. They don't leave you with that greasy feeling afterwards and help us heal at the same time feeling good. So check out Mom and Pop's naturals.com. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram for the markets and get natural ingredients for a healthy life.